At my son's wedding, my dill smashed my face into the hot mashed potatoes. Taste the food, old witch, she said. That's when someone among the guests turned pale with terror and screamed, "She's a billionaire." That night I did something that I should have known something was wrong the moment I walked into that reception hall, the way conversations stopped mid-sentence, how heads turned and whispers followed me like shadows. But I was so focused on my son, Felix, so desperate to make this day perfect, despite everything that I ignored, every warning sign the wedding had been beautiful. Felix looked handsome in his black tuxedo, standing at the altar with tears in his eyes as Rhea walked down the aisle in her flowing white dress. For a moment watching them exchange vows, I felt something I hadn't experienced in years. Hope maybe this marriage would heal the distance between my son and me. Maybe Rhea would be the bridge I'd been searching for. I was so wrong. The reception was held at the Grand Ballroom downtown with crystal chandeliers casting warm light over round tables draped in ivory linens. I'd offered to help pay for the venue, but Rhea had insisted they handle everything themselves. "We want to do this our way, Mrs. Morrison," she'd said with that sweet smile that never quite reached her eyes. I found my assigned seat at table 12 near the back, not at the family table, where Felix's new-in-laws sat laughing and toasting. Not even close to the head table where the bride and groom would sit, table 12 with distant cousins I barely knew and family friends who seemed uncomfortable making conversation with me. The evening dragged on with speeches and dancing. I watched Felix spin Rhea across the dance floor, her laughter ringing out above the music. He looked so happy, so completely absorbed in his new wife. When was the last time he'd looked at me like that? When was the last time he'd looked at me at all with anything other than polite tolerance? Dinner was served around 8 o'clock, prime rib, roasted vegetables and garlic mashed potatoes. I picked at my food. My appetite gone. The woman next to me, Felix's great aunt Margaret, kept shooting me sympathetic glances. "You must be so proud," she whispered, leaning close enough that I could smell her floral perfume. I replied, forcing a smile, "Felix deserves happiness." That's when I noticed Rhea making her way toward our table. She moved with purpose. Her jaw set in a way that made my stomach clench. Felix was nowhere to be seen, probably in the bathroom or outside getting air. "Mrs. Morrison," Rhea said when she reached my chair. Her voice was loud enough to carry to nearby tables. "I wanted to personally thank you for everything you've done for Felix." Something in her tone made me tense. "Of course, dear, he's my son." "Yes, he is." Her smile was sharp, now predatory, "and you've been such a dedicated mother, working all those night shifts, missing his school plays, his baseball games, always so busy." The conversations around us had stopped completely. I could feel eyes on us, the weight of sudden attention. "Rhea, perhaps we could talk about this later." "Oh, no, I think now is perfect." She moved closer and I caught a whiff of alcohol on her breath. "You see, Felix told me all about his childhood, how you were never there, how he spent most nights alone while you were off doing whatever it was you did." My cheeks burned. "I was working to support us. After his father died, you abandoned him." Her voice rose another notch. "You chose work over your own child, and now you want to play grandmother to our future children." The words hit me like physical blows around us. The silence was deafening. I could see people pulling out their phones recording this public humiliation. "Rhea, please," what she laughed, but there was no humor in it. "Please pretend you were a good mother. Please act like Felix doesn't still wake up sometimes calling for a mommy who was never there." I tried to stand to escape this nightmare, but Rhea placed a firm hand on my shoulder, pushing me back down. That's when I saw the plate of mashed potatoes in her other hand. "You know what? Mrs. Morrison, since you're so interested in family dinners now, why don't you really taste the food?" Before I could react, before anyone could stop her, Rhea shoved the plate toward my face. The hot mashed potatoes hit me square in the cheek and mouth, burning my skin. The force of it knocked me sideways in my chair, and I felt the scalding mixture slide down my neck and onto my dress. "Taste the food, you old hag," she screamed, her mask of civility completely gone. "Taste what a real family meal feels like." The pain was immediate and intense, not just from the heat of the potatoes, but from the complete shock of what had just happened. I sat there stunned, food dripping from my face and hair, unable to process that this was really happening. The ballroom erupted. People gasped. Chairs scraped against the floor as guests stood to get a better view. Someone was shouting for napkins. Another person was calling for hotel security. But through it all, I heard one voice above the chaos, a man I didn't recognize, standing near the bar with his mouth hanging open. "Oh my God," he said, his voice carrying across the suddenly quiet room. "Do you people have any idea who you just attacked? That's Stella Morrison. She's worth over $3 billion." The silence that followed was deafening. Every eye in the room turned to me, sitting there covered in mashed potatoes. My carefully styled hair ruined. My dignity shattered. $3 billion, the number hung in the air like an accusation. Rhea's face went white. Her hand, still holding the empty plate, began to tremble around us. I could see the gears turning in people's minds, recalculating everything they thought they knew about the modest woman in the simple blue dress. I finally managed to stand, potato mixture still sliding down my face. Without a word, I walked toward the exit, my heels clicking against the marble floor in the absolute silence. No one tried to stop me. No one said a word. But as I reached the door, I heard Felix's voice behind me, confused and desperate. Mom. Mom, wait, what's he talking about? What $3 billion? I didn't turn around. I couldn't bear to see the look in my son's eyes, the questions, the accusations, the realization that his mother had been lying to him his entire life. That night, sitting in my small apartment washing mashed potatoes out of my hair, I made a decision that would change everything they wanted to know about the $3 billion they were about to find out exactly what Della Morrison was capable of when pushed too far. 3 days passed before Felix called. 3 days of sitting in my small apartment, staring at my phone, waiting for it to ring. When it finally did, his voice was different, colder, more distant than I'd ever heard it. We need to talk, he said, without preamble, no greeting, no asking how I was after what happened at his wedding. Rhea wants to apologize.